In retaliation, what else can Russia do besides banning food imports from Europe in 2014? Balai Vishwanathan. 1. Russia can close its airspace and ban flights over its land. Russia covers a big chunk of land surface. If Europeans have to get to East Asia and vice versa, they have to either cross Russia or take a much longer and dangerous route over troubled Ukraine, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. Russia is working on measures to close its airspace to Asia, Pacific-bound flights, and German aviation worried about possible ban on transit flights in Russia. 2. Russia is the world's biggest producer of oil and gas, although US brushes with Russia and gas. It also has a few oil-producing allies like Iran and Venezuela. Together, they can make a very smart strategic move to affect world oil supply, like what the Arabs did in 1970s. It is quite hard to pull this off, though, as Saudis can move up the tap anytime. Thus, Putin will wait for the right time to use this weapon. 3. Russia has all kinds of military gadgets available for sale to any anti-Western power. Iran, Syria, and a few others could get more weapons at the right time. If Putin wants to get more destructive, he can distribute advanced anti-aircraft systems to various separatist movements worldwide, and that would bring down all aviation and send the global economy down crashing. MH17 was warning in that direction. Article: Miscalculation, Failure, Escalation. Why Putin shot down MH17. 4. Russia could unleash its hackers on Western businesses. That could send a lot of businesses into a tortoise mode. Russia has enough security experts to send the world of commerce reeling. We got a first taste here. Article: Russian hackers amass over 1 billion internet passwords. 5. Russia can pull other big powers closer to its reach. The recently concluded BRICS summit is one step closer to that. Russia has a lot to offer to this energy-hungry, weapons-hungry group. US and Europe need the BRICS for their global campaigns. And op-ed in Russian media, article: World is still livable due to BRICS counterbalancing West. 6. There's an image of Russian, Chinese, Indian, Brazilian, and South African leader. Then 7. Russia can block US access to space, or at the least force NASA to slow down for a while. NASA needs the ISS and the Russian launch facilities for now. Probably not as big a deal as others, as NASA can rebuild its facilities in a decade. Article: Russia to deny United States access to International Space Station starting in 2020. Don't assume that Putin doesn't know what he's doing. He knows he still has a lot of cards to play. If history teaches you one lesson, it is to never underestimate Russia and its infinite capacity to self-destruct. Chris Everett. They can shut down the gas supply to Europe. That would actually hurt Europe some, but there are 3 big problems with that plan. 1. Europe might just go and develop more of its own supplies and see the threat that Russia is, so a big potential for that to backfire. 2. Russia probably needs the money more than Europe needs the gas. 3. Russia's billionaires are making their money from this gas. They may not be so inclined to allow Putin to continue his little crusade if that cash flow is interfered with. The deal between Putin and the oligarchs is that they won't interfere with his policies if he doesn't interfere with their businesses. Beyond that, Russia has few economic levers at its disposal. Ken Nakagama. Although mostly irritating, Russia still has a toolbox. This is war, but an undeclared one. It has global implications with little blood. There is likely no combat between the sides because the West can't do it and knows the likely result. When you are weak, you suck eggs. I would agree of what is known, little left for Russia to do, but who knows. Cyber, although very significant, requires a smoking gun and press response. Russia will use it strategically, but probably not tactically. It's a battle of paper, wit, and the public impression. The press, like most of the public, don't understand technology, whereas everyone understands dead or its prospect. Diplomacy. Russia has permanent seat on the UN Security Council, something most seem to discount. The position is incredibly powerful as it's almost always the West wants support for an effort and Russia doesn't care. They could vote the UN into uselessness. Russia still has plenty of friends around the world, including China, Germany, UK, France, Turkey, and current life members of the Customs Union. South America and South Africa are getting closer to Russia than ever before, with a vendetta to stick it to the US and desire to replace EU trade. All have directly or indirectly supported Russia through action or inaction. India supported Russia absorbing Crimea. There are issues with expounding opportunities to take revenge on the US, as is Turkey's desire to get back to the West for ignoring them. The West genuinely needs these powers and they know it. India is of few countries specifically exempt from oil embargo with Iran. They know where the power is. Diplomacy with actionable response and strategy is the only way forward. Russia knows this perhaps all too well. Military. Strategic massing of troops for effect. Sending troops into Ukraine under any guise or use of medium-range missiles would further spook the world stock markets as it did this past week. Russians do lose, but foreign governments have no control of this. Move more capability into Kaliningrad besides Iskandar's short-range tactical systems. Russia could add medium-range missiles that could blanket Europe. It is valid that Russian submarine launch systems can strike anywhere. However, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, there is a significant psychological effect of having death on your doorstep that you can see. The Kremlin is well aware that Obama wanted nuclear non-proliferation and arms reduction to be the signature success in his administration and still does. This would also be a larger blow to the West overall. A 50% reduction in warheads could save the US up to $1 trillion in new delivery systems and 2 new ICBM programs, so this dove has an ROI. They could foment public Russian displeasure in the Baltics and create a perception of prosecution as they did in Ukraine. The actions would significantly stress NATO, which has no appetite to act. It is so extreme that Baltic NATO countries openly question Article 5 would ever be fulfilled with a military response. Simply talking about Russian citizens in Baltics or holding a planned military exercise, created yesterday, significantly affects citizens while making the West look weak without response. Russia can continue to brush US airspace and that of countries they don't like. These bombers are genuine museum pieces and characteristics make them very easy to identify. Western press is so inept that photos of B-52S were used around the globe. They do, however, create an unusual effective hurt to a population with insecurity. There are hundreds of Russian tanks and many complicated weapons in East Ukraine. This increased substantially after MH17. Russia is so emboldened that they stopped repainting vehicles and even troops keep their military insignia on uniforms. Comes back to diplomacy and they can deny forever. To downplay reality, NATO only counts the 20,000 troops on Ukraine's eastern border, but there is another 20,000 in Crimea. NATO has consistently underestimated troops and equipment in public of typically 25-50%. NATO has roughly 7,000 combat-ready troops, people that fire weapons, in Europe, spread all over the continent, and most never practiced together besides drinking beer. Energy. Russia can for a very short period shut off gas, but it will only hurt them much more than the rest of the world. Global supply markets cannot replace Russian oil and gas, so the spot market would go much higher than any time in the past decade if it is sustained. Russian citizens in general have been very supportive of food sanctions, and state television has portrayed it as Russian citizens' patriotic duty. A bit Soviet, isn't it? Russians will farm their dachas and do without many things. Foreign goods through the black market or relabeled from Belarus will likely go up 20-40% in cost. Russian citizens will have a choice of not consuming these suddenly expensive goods. Countries filling the food vacuum won't be able to risk not price gauging at Russia's expense. Russians, without question, will suffer, with state economists estimating a 1.5% hit to GDP from sanctions, very optimistic. Russia already has 7.5% annual inflation before sanctions. Undisputed is Russia is in recession, but an injured and cornered animal is the most dangerous one. Success. What the Kremlin has been incredibly successful with are many. Many intelligence experts never expected Russia to go as far as they have or be as good as they are. Military and foreign policy was built around these theories and will take decades to change if they do at all. Bullet point. Uncovered how impotent NATO and the largest militaries in the world are from acting in any useful manner to deter or dissuade Russia from doing what they wish, demonstrating how afraid the world is from taking action besides paper. There are many complicated reasons. Second bullet point. Shown how West military ability is to defend Europe is a paper tiger and the starvation of defense far below Russia in deployable capability. Almost all analysts now believe Russia could invade and take Europe in a few weeks before the West could respond, with ability they are willing to use. This doesn't seem to bother Europe at all. Bullet point. Weaknesses in Western diplomacy and form of government. These specifically include working together to take decisive action with less regard from economics and long-term effects. It took months to agree on relatively weak sanctions that Russia implemented over a weekend. The Beltway has substantially been embarrassed again, which emboldens much of the world of a fading America on the world stage. Overnight bans are very much a joke, but done to get headlines. Defending Arctic waters is only new in that these issues are made public. Health safety pressure on McDonald's and KFC are just a poke in the eye, as almost all the supplies are domestically produced by Russian companies. Starbucks insect ingredients are not new. Coca-Cola water quality fails standards. It is bottled in Russia. There are also things Russia can do that nobody has thought of. Actions today fall in that category in views only months ago. What we know for certain is to not underestimate what Russia is willing to do. It's this same line of thinking that got us here in the first place, which have proven to be principally wrong. Nukes are not even in discussion besides moving them around. Nobody has the idiocracy to consider it. Like we are the most powerful military, it is only 20% of the equation. We have economic might, so they wouldn't dare. Yes, they will. Russian economy is a disaster. So what? The people are willing to suffer. Russian military is dilapidated and useless. Nope, they are beating us now. Russians might care about the same things as everyone else. Unlikely. Written August 10th.